Good evening, and welcome to an hour-long discussion with three of the leading candidates for the Republican nomination for governor of West Virginia. I'm Hoppy Kercheval. And I said discussion because this is not a true debate with time limits. It's really more of a talk, a discussion with our candidates, a freewheeling discussion, I hope, about the issues impacting our state and our residents. With that, please welcome our candidates this evening. Maura Capito, Mac Warner, and Chris Miller. Patrick Morrissey was invited to attend this evening, but declined. And guys, this is West Virginia. I know you all, you know me. It's all on a first-name basis, so welcome. I'm glad you're here this evening. Thanks for coming. All right, let's start here. The governor is the leader of our state with tremendous power and responsibilities. Management of huge agencies, thousands of people. So the quality of leadership is important. I'm not talking politics. I'm talking about quality of leadership is important. Each of you has leadership experience, but in different areas. Mac, career in the military, public service, as Secretary of State. Chris, successful businessman, numerous auto dealerships. Moore is a practicing attorney, chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. Who among you is the best, has the best management skills to run this state, and why are you more qualified than anybody else sitting at this table or not sitting at this table? So, Moore, I'll start with you.
Well, thank you, Hoppy. Thank you for having us on. I think it's great that we're all here tonight, and I appreciate the question. You know, as a lifelong West Virginian and a father of two children, the future of this state is incredibly important to me. I am the get-it-done conservative in this race, and what we mean by that is I have a track record of getting big things done for the people of West Virginia, things that have moved the needle economically and culturally so that West Virginia is in a place where we've gained really good momentum. And we're in that place because of the things that we've gotten done in the legislature alongside with Governor Jim Justice, who has gone out and sold this state very effectively. I'm ready to lead on day one because of my experience of bringing people together and delivering conservative results that move the needle.
What are your management? How are your management skills better than Mac or Chris or anyone else specifically?
I think that we're probably all different people, but what anybody would tell you that works with me is that I'm a listener and I'm a doer. We've delivered in the legislature and specifically in the Judiciary Committee, and as chair of that committee, if you know anything about it, we've delivered the most conservative agenda in the history of the state of West Virginia. And that takes bringing people together and building consensus in order to get things across the line. And I've shown the ability to do that time and again.
Chris, are your skills better than his skills?
That's not the right question, but I will tell you how I am a leader. When I got involved in our family business, we had two. Through a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and hard work, I was able to turn that into 26 different enterprises. We employ 500 people inside of West Virginia, 700 people total, and I've built a bunch of different businesses. We're in the automotive space, we're in insurance and reinsurance, we're in real estate, we have a bison farm, and I also have a data and technology company. We're incredibly philanthropic, we've been involved in a lot of community stuff, and in my mind, that's what leadership is. It's being able to employ a bunch of people and make sure they have jobs and paychecks and to take care of them. And it's also be able to take care of the communities that I'm privileged enough to do business in, because I think a business and a community forms a symbiotic relationship, and a rising tide raises all ships.
Mac, will you be a better
That's leadership.
Mac, do you have better leadership skills than these guys or anybody who's not here?
Hoppy, your question is about quality leadership. I went to the #1 institution in the world about leadership, and that's the United States Military Academy at West Point. Spent a career in the military. And the military teaches you to listen, to cooperate, to coordinate, and to get things done at the massive scale. So I'm talking about when I went to Afghanistan for 5 years, I was in charge of the world's largest rule of law program. Now catch it, largest in the world. So I'm talking the Supreme Court of Afghanistan, Attorney General's Office, Ministry of Justice, and the Ministry of Women's Affairs. I had over 100 people working underneath me. I've also deployed to Afghanistan, to Haiti, Bosnia, Panama, Peru, and I've watched generals orchestrate going into each one of those and the coordination they have to. I make an analogy to the military into the governor's office.
So you have better skills than Chris?
I've got leadership skills ready to take on the governor of West Virginia.
Well, you know what's not leadership? When Patrick Morrissey was a lobbyist, he showed up every single day for special interest. Then when the voters, when the taxpayers have serious questions, he doesn't show up at all. He's hiding in his basement like Joe Biden. That's not what leadership is. If you're looking at comparing leadership to everybody here on this table, we're all here because we want to be a part of making sure we're moving West Virginia into the right direction, because our state is facing serious financial catastrophes. We're in a good spot right now where some good things are happening. But if we don't grow our population and grow our economy, we have a bond rating fiasco coming.
All right,
that's why I'm here.
Let's go to the economy then, because the state has poured hundreds of millions of dollars into helping finance economic development projects in West Virginia. $275 million to Nucor Steel, $290 million to Form Energy, battery plant in Weirton. Are those investments, if you're governor, are those investments the kind of investments that you all want to make? Mac, I'll start with you. Would you commit this state to hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars to try to bring a business to West Virginia?
Hoppy, let me put that into context. Those were appropriate expenditures at that time. The time has changed. It's time to pivot. It's time to not give money to corporations to bring them here. It's time to put that money into the ground in West Virginia where it can't leave. If one of these companies sells out, that money may go with that the owner of that company. We need to put in infrastructure. We're talking water, sewer, gas, level, pad-ready sites. That's where we need to put the money in the future.
So you would not give taxpayer dollars to businesses that want to come to West Virginia. Is that fair to say?
I'd have to take a look at it, but my inclination is to work with the regional economic development councils and authorities and put that money in the ground in West Virginia rather than giving it to a company.
Moore, what would you do?
This is all about the people of West Virginia and what's best for the people. This is about lifting up communities that need it. We know that the best way to improve the life and quality of life of West Virginians is to provide good-paying jobs at the end of the day. It's good-paying jobs, it's good infrastructure, and it's good education. We have to focus on every single opportunity that we have to build more jobs in West Virginia.
Is committing hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars part of that, part of your equation?
I was at the Nucor groundbreaking a couple of weeks ago. It's amazing to see that. If you haven't been down there to take a look at it, it's a really incredible sight to see. It was actually a Guinness Book of World Record groundbreaking that they had. And you drive by and you turn onto the road and you look over the river, and as you approach the site, it's what $3 billion looks like. $3 billion of investment into the state of West Virginia to grow high-quality, big paycheck jobs for the people of this state.
So it's the right thing to do.
And Nucor was absolutely a great partner, and they continue to be a great partner because they're a long-term partner, Hoppy.
Okay, so I see a yes here. I see a probably no from Matt. Chris, what about you?
Growing our economy and growing our population is vital for the survival of West Virginia. The first thing I want to say is that any of these deals we cut with outside businesses, the thing that really makes me scratch my head is that you know who's good negotiators? Good negotiators are business people. I have to be a negotiator every single day. You know who are bad negotiators? Politicians and bureaucrats. They aren't playing with their own money. So the first thing that I want to do is get in there and review all these deals, because I guarantee you, like everything else the government does, they leave meat on the bone. If I ran my businesses the way the government spends our tax dollars, I'd be broke. And we can't tolerate that kind of waste right now.
Do you think you'd be a better negotiator than anybody sitting here?
I'd be a better negotiator than anybody else that's sitting in that chair.
Would you be willing to commit taxpayer dollars to bring businesses to West Virginia?
I would work 70 hours a week to make sure that we drive West Virginia's economy forward. I would make sure that the right deals get done that need to get done without selling our souls or selling our natural resources down the river like we've always done. And I would make sure that West Virginia has an economy that thrives.
The legislature and the governor approved a tax cut of 21% of marginal rates, and there will be future cuts in tax rates if certain financial benchmarks are met. So each of you, and Chris, I'll start with you, is the pace that the state is on for cutting income tax rates, is it too fast, too slow, or about right? If you were governor, would you want to cut income taxes faster or about follow this formula?
Capital flows like water to the places that it's most welcome. At the end of the day, we have to make West Virginia welcome to business and welcome to investment. And we also have to make sure that the businesses here on the ground level that literally get exempt from all the special deals that happen with all these out-of-state businesses wind up getting some of their own fair share as well. That is a major problem with these deals that have been negotiated. Guys like me are on the ground still stuck paying all the taxes, and these other businesses come in here and get exempt from it. That's a problem. Now, the income tax, I will tell you this, 3 of the 4 fastest growing states post-pandemic, Tennessee, Texas, and Florida all have one thing in common. That is a zero state income tax. That's because the Trump tax cuts got rid of all the SALT deductions. And guess what? People started going to the places that had a zero state income tax. If we're going to grow West Virginia's economy and we are going to grow West Virginia's population to save the financial catastrophe that's coming, we have to accelerate the zero income tax, and we have to do it right now.
All right, so you want to speed up the income tax cuts if you were governor. I want to get to these guys on that question, but I want to go back to something you said. So were the deals for Nucor, which Moore was praising, and Form Energy and Berkshire Hathaway, then were those bad deals?
So we're not privy to all of the ins and outs of all the deal yet, but I will tell you that I think the Nucor thing is the right deal. I'm not sure about the other ones.
Okay. Mac, what about, would you speed up? It sounds like that Chris says he would want to speed up the rate that income tax rates are cuts. What would you do if you're governor?
Get rid of it day one.
Get rid of the entire income tax?
Day one.
And eliminate hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue? How do you make up that revenue if you're going to eliminate?
The economic growth that comes along with it is what literally drives an economy.
All right, so let me ask these guys. So you would pledge on day one, you would introduce a bill to eliminate the state income tax. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
All right, Mac?
Hoppy, I'm glad you pinned him down on that, okay? I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative. We don't like taxes, okay? So, yes, if we can eliminate it, we can. I think the legislature took a very adult approach to this, and that's give the 21%, and then if they meet certain standards, hit the next 10%, the next 10%. My question is, and we talk about these surpluses that West Virginia is now enjoying. Those surpluses aren't going to be there for long, okay? The federal government money coming in after COVID and that sort of thing is going to dry up. I'm afraid of what the current governor is leaving the next governor. And so I want to be cautious about cutting taxes too fast. And so that's why I like the legislature getting in there as a regulator to make sure it doesn't happen too fast. We have problems with teacher retention. We have problems with corrections retention. The medical examiner, all the first responders, volunteer fire departments, we don't have a surplus. We should be spending that money and making sure those people are brought up to speed and we can keep them here and recruit new people into the state.
And we're going to get to those issues. I'm going to get back to you on that. So Chris wants to get rid of the income tax, the rest of the income tax, day one. Mac, you're more cautious about that. More, where are you?
Well, I mean, Hoppy, as the get-it-done conservative in this race, I'll tell you, I'm the only one sitting at this table that has actually cut hardworking West Virginians and given them their money back. It was the greatest vote that I've ever been able to take. We absolutely put together a plan that would reduce the income tax in the state of West Virginia immediately by 21%. We put triggers in place to responsibly reduce that until it gets to zero. I was proud to be part of that. One of the number one things that businesses look at, whether they're already here or whether they're seeking to come here, is predictability. We've put in place a predictable tax reduction plan that can be accelerated if the economy continues to grow the way that it does. And if we continue the pro-growth strategy that we've put in place and that I've helped to get done alongside with Governor Justice and folks in the legislature, we'll continue to see that growth. Now, what they're not telling you is if we eliminate the income tax on day one, they're going to increase your sales tax double or maybe even triple, or blowing a complete hole in the budget.
So Chris's plan is irresponsible.
That's not what I said. You have to find a way to balance a budget. The only responsibility, the only duty of the West Virginia legislature and the governor is to pass a balanced budget. And you have to find a way to do it, and that takes results, and that takes a get-it-done approach.
Chris, it's 2-1 not to cut taxes on day one.
The difference between me and everybody else here is that I don't need a job. I've got plenty of those. I'm doing this because I've got the only skill set that's able to manage the West Virginia state economy the way it needs to be managed to avert the financial catastrophes that are coming. And they are huge. If we don't add about 200,000 people to our state over the next 10 to 12 years, we have a bond ratings fiasco coming. It has to do with this long-term bad economy and a declining population over the past 40 years. And because of the way funds flow into the state's government, with the declining population and the aging population, it creates the perfect storm where it racks our bond ratings, dramatically raises the cost to government, and we don't have a productive tax base below it to justify that big bloated existence. And you want to talk about a bad day? You want to talk about irresponsible? The 55 counties, the 55 boards of education, the 55 courthouses, all of the municipalities all around the state that are not going to have funding when that day comes.
I tell you what.
And the only way to fix that, Hoppy, is to create an economy that thrives. And the free market and the incentive mechanism for everyone is what does that. We grow the population. It fixes everything. It fixes workers' comp modifiers. It fixes healthcare costs. It fixes funding for the Department of Highways. It fixes everything.
You touched on the labor force. Mac, I want to ask you. So West Virginia has a labor force issue. We know that. The participation rate is the lowest in the nation. Consistently, employers complain that they can't find workers. Now, think about this. Foreign workers, foreign-born workers, account for 18% of the U.S. civilian workforce. 18% of the U.S. civilian workforce. The number of immigrants in West Virginia is less than 5%. Would you favor, Mac, I'll start with you, would you favor support, and I know this is a national issue, but it's relevant to West Virginia, would you favor support some immigration policy in this country that would encourage more foreign workers to come into this country and to come to this state and take jobs that are in this state?
Hoppy, I have a much better solution than that. And I heard on your radio show today, people talking about bringing in immigrants and getting people out of corrections facilities and so forth. Let's use our military folks. We have such a population that goes into the military, and only 21% of those come back to West Virginia after serving there. They've got a skill set, their work discipline, a work ethic. Let's entice them back to the
By
state.
doing what?
Give them tax breaks. Give them in-state tuition. I was talking with Penny Lipscomb today, right over here at WVU, and she said she's pushing to the legislature a bill that says, let's give every veteran that wants to come to the state, go to school here, in-state tuition. Why can't we do that? That will bring people in with a skill set as opposed to bringing in immigrants that may not fit into the culture. Now, if it's a legal immigrant, bring it on. I'm the only one sitting at this table that's been in those places, Peru, Panama, Bosnia, and so forth, that's seen the lines of hundreds of people, hours long, waiting to get into the embassy to be able to get a visa to come here. Let's work with those people who are doing it legally, not coming in here illegally. That's my concern with the immigration, is trying to bring immigrants here.
Maura, what do you think of Mac's plan that he was talking about today of giving a tax break to veterans, or in-state tuition, I'm sorry, to veterans to come to West Virginia? Or how do you, if you're governor, solve this workforce dilemma?
Well, I mean, in response to the question about the veterans, I'm happy to answer that. Actually, I had a bill this year that waived all tuition requirements for veterans for higher education and their family. No question about it that we have to have more participation, more incentives for our veterans, and I thank Secretary Warner for his service and all of his family's service to our country, especially on a day like today. I know that we're observing here on December 7th. You know, we have to engage that veteran community. We've cut those taxes before, absolutely. We need to do that. With respect to the illegal immigration thing, I mean, as the author of the bill that bans sanctuary cities in West Virginia, I don't think we need illegal immigrants in West Virginia taking West Virginians' jobs, because we have people that want to go to work. I'll tell you a story. I was down in Logan last month at the Votech Center. I spent the morning there with these kids that were engaging in welding and auto mechanics and auto painting. There were all sorts of different activity that these kids were choosing to engage in. And I think I was in the welding shop, and I had asked a young guy, I said, hey, what are you doing here? What do you like? He said, I like working with my hands and I want to make money. And that's exactly the type of mindset that we need in this country at this time. We have it here in West Virginia. Our future is critical right here in West Virginia to show the rest of the country that we are going to lead this country's return to the American workforce producing American products.
Chris, I'm going to get to you in a bit. If we have it here now, why do we have this great shortage of qualified workers?
We need workforce development, Hoppy. There's no question that we have workforce development pieces that are going in place. We had Senate Bill 1 from 4 years ago that's providing more high school children the opportunity to go to these VOTEC or 2-year or even some 4-year or certification where they can have all of the money that they need to be able to get trained in order to enter the workforce. I can't think of anything more important than having our kids coming out of high school either ready to enter the military, ready to enter the workforce, or ready to go on to higher education.
Chris, let me go to you on this. You run businesses, so you probably have hiring issues all the time. And I wasn't talking about illegal immigrants. I was talking about foreign-born workers who come to this country and want to work, and West Virginia doesn't have very many of them. So would it be beneficial, do you care where they're from if you're trying to hire somebody?
So we live in a crazy world. And right now, that data company that I was telling you about tells us we're in the beginning stages of a demographic shift in our country. And there's 4 things that are driving it. It's cultural, it's social, it's economic, and it's political. And at the end of the day, not to bore the audience with a bunch of data, West Virginia has what people are already looking for. We have a high quality of life, and we have a low cost of living. We've got all the hills, the trees, the rivers, the streams, and we have some of the best people on planet Earth right here in our state. Plus, we're very conservative-minded and family-oriented, and we're a stone's throw away from a majority of the country's population. All we have to do is promote and market the state the right way, adjust some of the rules to the playing field, get rid of the income tax, get rid of some additional taxes, eliminate some of the burdens of regulation, and then West Virginia can take off. People already want to come here. They already are looking, and the data is there to support that. So all we have to do is get to work and open it up the right way.
Mike?
I'll give you the main thing we need to do is we need to fix broadband in the state. If we have broadband, internet service, phone service throughout the state, we're going to get those people who are able to come here, work remotely, but we have to fix our education system. Everything begins with education. People aren't going to come to a state that's got poor education.
Oh, I tell you what, let's go to education. The number of vacancies of certified school teachers in the classrooms in this state, we're at about like 1,500, and it's growing every year. And Moore, I'm going to start with you. Do you believe that higher pay would help fill those vacancies? If not, why not? If so, what would you propose the first year? And I'm going to go, I went to your website. You say on your website, you want a future in West Virginia where, quote, teachers have the resources they need to eliminate any achievement gaps. So what specifically are you proposing, and is a pay raise part of that? And would you propose a pay raise day one?
Hoppy, thanks for the question. You know, this campaign has driven 60,000 miles plus across the state of West Virginia listening to everyday West Virginians, listening to educators, community leaders, religious leaders, and parents. We know that our education system needs a boost. I got 2 kids in it right now, and we need to make sure that our teachers can get back to inspiring. We've been visiting over the past several months with educational professionals and other state leaders to see what's working in their states. We're going to be releasing a plan very, very soon, but it centers around some very key areas. One being, we have to always empower parents. As a parent, I think I know what's best for my children, and I think parents know what's best for their children. We have to have incredible teachers that are compensated, but in return, we must require accountability. We need to measure the success of our children, and those metrics need to go back to the classroom every single time. I've been very proud to support teacher pay raises because teachers are working hard. There are a lot of teachers in West Virginia that care about our children, but they're overworked. We need to provide more mental health in our schools so that our children that aren't well, whether it's physically, mentally, or emotionally, are getting the help that they need so they can learn better in the classroom. We passed the Third Grade Success Act this year. It allows for more supplemental resources in first, second, and third grades so that we can close the achievement gap. And thirdly, and I'll just mention, as I mentioned before, we're going to have a work-ready program in the state of West Virginia so that every single high school student is either going to be able to pass a military entrance exam, they're going to have a workable vocational skill, or they're going to be able to pass a college entrance exam.
Does the quote, the resources they need, does that include higher pay for teachers? Because one of the things you will be asked if you're governor going into your very first legislative session is, are you going to propose a pay raise for teachers, staff, and state employees?
I've already supported teachers.
But would you support another one?
Absolutely. If we have if we have the right plan in place to make sure that our educators that are spending time with our children are compensated to take care of them, yes, we will continue to compensate our teachers, but we will focus on accountability.
Okay, Mac, would you propose a pay raise?
Hoppy, pay raises certainly help, but that's not the only problem, okay? I'm the only one in this race who's been a teacher. I've stood in front of students. I know how important every minute in front of those students are and the problems that come up when there's a disciplinary problem in the classroom. So what teachers need, all right, first, there's a three-legged stool to education, teachers, parents, and the students. And the focus has always got to stay on the student. If we focus there, we're going to get to the right answers. We have to be competitive with our surrounding states. So if we're not competitive, and I don't think that we are, yes, we're going to get the teachers the pay raise they need. But they want to be able to do what they came into the profession to do. They want to teach students. And so if we got to get respect back in the classroom. And
By doing what?
Well, you had a person on your show just a week or so ago, I think it was Amy Grady, talking about the CARES Academy. If there's a disciplinary problem, the teacher needs to be able to remove remove that student because it's not fair to the other 20, 30 students that are in that classroom, and we've got to give the teacher the power, the authority to do that. We need to back them up, give them the respect that they're due. I talked to a ROTC cadet today at the December 7th ceremony right beside the flag pole at WVU, and he said he wanted to become a teacher, and I asked him why. He said, because I want to instill what I know to the next generation, like my mother did. That's the people that we need here. But it doesn't. He didn't say pay. He didn't say because I make a lot of money. He said because he wanted to instill his knowledge into the next generation.
But you would, just for the record, you would support higher pay as part of what you want to do.
So we're competitive with the other states. We can't lose our teachers to Maryland, Virginia.
Chris, what about you?
My wife was a 6th grade and 7th grade English teacher for a number of years, and I watched her struggle to make sure that kids that she taught had shoes. She worked with all of the different teachers she had to buy appliances for parents. They went above and beyond the call of duty. Like you said, there is a teacher shortage nationally, and for West Virginia to grow our economy and thrive, we have to have an education system that keeps our kids here. Our teachers, to remain competitive, need to be paid more. And the problem we've got is the structure. We have this big bloated bureaucracy that soaks up all of the taxpayer resources before the money flows into the classroom to pay the teachers more and to make sure that the resources go to the customer, that is the taxpayer, that is the parent and the student. And so we need to look at restructuring how it is, because the money is there to make sure the teachers are paid, the actual education system is successful, and the students are getting what they need. All we have to do is reinvent the system.
So you would cut the size of the Department of Education?
I would
that
cut,
the bureaucracy or county school system?
I would cut the bureaucracy and the waste. There's waste and there's bureaucracy that slows down decision making, and I would cut all that, and I'd make sure the revenue flows to benefit the teacher and to benefit the student and the parent.
Does anybody here think we have too many different school systems at 55, or do you endorse like having 55 separate school systems? That comes up a lot.
Poppy, let me tell you, the essence to our communities typically is at school. And when you consolidate, yes, you might hit efficiencies on the other side, but you ruin that community. We need to push education down to the lowest possible level and encourage schools at the local levels.
What about like we've touched on some of these things, but low test scores, high absenteeism, disruptive students in the classroom, Mac, you mentioned. What can a governor do, if anything, to reverse those trends?
Well, I mean, I think, Hoppy, we have to let our teachers inspire. As a kid who went through the public school system here in West Virginia, all the way through, you know, some of the most important people in my life were my teachers and my coaches. It's because they were able to spend that time that Chris referenced, you know, the time that wasn't teaching in the classroom, but what's going on in your life? How are you feeling today? And for far too long, we haven't listened to our teachers that are in the classroom, the folks that are on the ground, that are with our children every single day. We need to start letting them become part of the conversation. You mentioned resources. Resources isn't just money. It's supplemental help to the classroom. If it's reading assistance like the Third Grade Act we put through, great. If it means bringing other teachers on board so we can reduce class sizes so that children can get more face time with their teacher, that's something else we need to look at. But we need to make sure that we're taking best practices and see what's working in other counties and see if it can work in some of the...
All right, wait, Chris, let me get in. I'll come back to me.
All right, the teachers are also overwhelmed with IEPs and all this bureaucratic paperwork and paper shuffling they've got to do that takes them away from the time they need to spend focusing on teaching. And I saw my wife grading papers until midnight when she taught. And that's just one of the things that they did because of the time of the day that they had to get all this other crap done.
Right.
So, I was down at Chapmanville High School just a couple weeks ago, and the principal was talking about a truancy rate of between 20 and 25%.
That's the state average.
I was absolutely appalled at that.
Right.
We've got to make the schools interesting for the kids to want to come to school. And so I've been a part of the Hunt Keene Institute, which looks at nationally what it takes to improve the education systems across the country. I've been over to places where they have inside the high school workshops, and I'm not talking the type that we probably went to with woodworking and type setting and that sort of thing. This was, I'm talking about 2x4s, insulation, welding, pouring concrete, actually building things inside the high school. That's going to get a kid to come back to school who's basically lost interest maybe in some academics. We need to make education interesting so the students want to come to school.
Here's a couple yes or no questions. Would you abide by the Constitution's, I'll start with you, Chris. Would you abide by the Constitution's directive to reside at the seat of government if you're elected?
Sounds pretty cut and dry to me, yes, sir.
Would you place your assets in a blind trust?
Probably not.
reason?
Is that required by the Constitution?
Not to my knowledge.
Exactly right. So then I'm not going to do it.
Not going to do it?
No.
Would you continue to run your businesses?
No, I can't. I had to restructure everything the last 6 months of last
So
year.
you would not run your businesses?
I would not be able to do that now.
Not a blind trust, but you would live at the governor's mansion. Mac?
Hoppy, I've been married to a wonderful woman for 41 years. We look forward to living in the governor's mansion. Absolutely. And I don't have the assets to put into a blind trust. I was a military guy, okay?
More?
Yes, I would reside at the residence in Charleston because I think it's critically important to be able to, to build those, those relationships. Absolutely would put assets in a blind trust.
Okay, this is a yes or no, too. Would you have in-person press conferences with the ability of reporters to ask questions and follow-up questions?
Who asked you to say that? No, I'm just kidding. Absolutely. I think dialogue's great. I mean, Hoppy, I've been on your show many, many times, and I think the dialogue's great. And here's why it's most important. It's most important for West Virginians. West Virginians want to know where their governor is, where their governor stands, and what their governor believes.
Mac?
Absolutely. And I was talking to a city councilman out in the Eastern Panhandle the other day, and he talked about the first time he knew that his roads were going to be paved in his city was when the state road showed up and started looking for a site to stage things. There was no communication. So the answer is yes, we need communication. That's a basic fundamental piece of military.
Has there been bad
operations.
communication in this administration?
Either bad or no communication, and apparently in this situation there was.
Chris?
The governor is the CEO of the state, and when you're running a business or running a state, communication is imperative. It also allows you to promote and tell everything that's going on to the rest of the people around the country about how great West Virginia is. So interacting with press is really, really important, making sure that communicating what's going on, like what Matt was talking about with development around the state, with jobs and roads and that kind of stuff, it is an opportunity to explain to everybody what you're doing and why. And so it's vital.
Former...
If I may, I would just say, at the end of the day, West Virginians want someone that gets things done. We have a governor right now that gets things done. That is the concern that people have. I don't know that they concern where that person is. It's about showing up, being present, and being the leader of the people of West Virginia.
Do you believe this governor gets things done?
Well, I'm going to take a little exception with this get it done attitude. Like you said earlier, when we're talking about corrections facilities and having to put our National Guard in there for over a year, when we talk about the roads and that kind of situation that I just mentioned, the teacher shortages, the corrections facility shortages, are we getting it done, Hoppy? I think we have a lot of problems.
That's a good rhetorical question. Are we getting it done under this governor?
No, not enough. That's why we need leadership, experienced leadership, and that's what I bring to the table.
Chris, is this governor getting it done?
I think business guys see things and opportunities that other people don't, and that's exactly what Governor Justice has done. He stepped in, has done things his own way, and look at where we are. We have a positive economic growth. We're one of the fastest growing GDPs in the country. There's a lot of good things that are going on at this very moment. But like Matt said, there's an incredible amount of work that still needs to get done, and you only have so much time to be able to do it. The difference between me and Governor Justice, we're both business guys. I'm from a different generation, and I understand technology, and I understand how to improve efficiencies and run organizations on the ground level in a different way. So I'd take what he's done and catapult on top of it and make it even better.
Okay. Former President Trump faces 91 felony charges in 4 criminal cases in a range of venues. A judge in a civil case found that he sexually abused a woman. And a judge in another civil case has concluded that Trump conducted his New York businesses fraudulently. I know you all support Donald Trump. Do you, after all of that, do you still endorse him, Chris? Do you endorse Donald Trump? Does he give you any pause?
Yeah, absolutely. I like to look at the world the way it is as opposed to how I wish it would be, and that is the only way that you can look at things. Putin would not be in the Ukraine right now if Donald Trump was our president. China would not be as emboldened right now as they are. What's going on in Israel would not be happening if Donald Trump was our president. He was in the middle of breaking up systematic bureaucracies inside of our country, and also he had created one of the greatest economies in the history of mankind.
So none of these
I'd
other things bother you?
I'd rather have Donald Trump in office than Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden any day of the week, because look at the results right now. We've got an administration with Joe Biden that is horribly corrupt. They're literally selling our interests all around the country. We have an economy that's crumbling around us right now. I'd pick Donald Trump every day of the week over Joe Biden.
Mac, would you?
Hoppy, I think President Trump has taken up residence inside your head. I think if we looked in your ear, you'd see Mar-a-Lago in there. And every now and then he goes and rattles the chain, and it rattles you, and you have to speak out against. Hoppy, I don't know why you're obsessed with Donald Trump, but I don't endorse anybody. I'm the chief elections officer for the state. I don't endorse anybody. I didn't even endorse my wife when she ran. So I don't endorse. I will support the Republican nominee for president. And I agree with Chris that I would take Donald Trump over some of those other candidates any day of the week.
I absolutely endorse Donald Trump. And here's why. Donald Trump cares about West Virginia. Donald Trump has come to West Virginia. He talks about West Virginians. He's made it very, very clear that West Virginia is going to be a big part of his economic policy to bring back the economy that Chris just talked about. That's with our energy resources. All of the other stuff right now is just noise. In what other country do we see this sort of attack on presidential candidates?
All right, I'll ask one other question, because as Max said, he's living rent-free in my head.
When I'm traveling all around the state, anybody we talk to, they don't mention that. They don't mention anything about Donald Trump in that kind of way. They want him back. They want him back. That's everybody all around the state.
All right, I have one other question on Trump. Then we can. And Mac, I'll start with you. All right. So as recently as this week, Trump repeated his arguments that the 2020 presidential election that he lost was stolen, and that U.S. elections in general are rigged. There's no evidence the 2020 election was stolen. I know you have some issues about how some of the elections were conducted. I understand that. Do you believe Trump is correct when he continues to say the election was stolen?
The election was stolen, Hoppy.
And the election was stolen?
It was stolen, and it was stolen by the CIA. When Mike Morrell testified under oath to Jim Jordan that, yes, he colluded with Anthony Blinken to sell a lie to the American people 2 weeks before the election for the very purpose of throwing the presidential election. How does it not get stolen if it's more? And the FBI covers it up, and Mark Zuckerberg pays $400 million to put his thumb on the scale. That's not a fair.
So the election was stolen.
Yes.
More, was the election stolen?
What we can talk about is what happened in the state of West Virginia, and we have had very secure, and we're very vigilant about our elections in the state of West Virginia.
Thank you, Moore. I appreciate that.
Hey, Secretary Warner deserves credit for that. Donald Trump won the state of West Virginia by 40 points. And in 2016, when the Washington liberal elite were crying about President Trump beating Hillary Clinton, they never once cried about the results in West Virginia. I believe if every state would conduct their elections like we do here, we wouldn't be having this discussion.
When Max said the election was stolen, was the election stolen?
We know what happened in West Virginia, and that's what we can speak to. It was rock solid. Donald Trump won West Virginia and will win it again.
Well, I was talking nationally. Chris, was the election stolen? The word stolen.
Possibly. Like, let me give you an example. Mail-in ballots. I go into the courthouse. I cast my vote. I see it done right then and there. Here's the difference with a mail-in ballot. It's like me going to the courthouse to cast my vote and handing that to a clerk that walks out of the room, around the street, over another building, up the stairway, does something in that room, comes back around and goes, hey, great news, your vote's cast. That's a problem. Also, you know what another problem is? Making sure that we have voter ID laws everywhere. Now, West Virginia gets it right. Other states around the country, they need to get it right. And I think voter ID laws is a fantastic place to start.
All right, we're going to move along. Mac, I'm going to remove Trump from my head, and we'll move on to other issues like roads, okay? Of the 1,263 bridge and highway projects undertaken through the Roads to Prosperity program, about 1,200 are now complete. To do so, the state was allowed to take on $1.6 billion in debt with a big bond issue. If you were governor, given the roads in West Virginia, given what some of the roads you may have traveled on coming to this building in Morgantown tonight, would you propose another road bond issue, or do you have some other idea on how to fix roads? Moore, I'll start with you.
Well, what we're seeing is a lot of work that's being done on the roads in West Virginia right now. And let me just say this, Hoppy, and be crystal clear. Infrastructure is a critical piece to explosive economic growth. We know that. It's been mentioned tonight that West Virginia is in a sweet spot. When you look at our location regionally, we're within a day's drive of 2/3 of the population. But we have very serious projects in the state of West Virginia that we need to get done. I've traveled all over this state, as I said, over 60,000 miles just listening to what's going on. And what I know is down south, we've got to finish the Coalfields Expressway. I think there's a ribbon cutting coming up on the King Coal Highway. We've got to ensure that Quarter H gets completed. We need to look at the exit. I was just up in Martinsburg. We need to get exit 12, the exit there widened. It's bottlenecking like crazy right now. And one of the most critical that I'll say for last is what we've got going on with the exit at Harmony Grove here in Morgantown. Those are things that we have to get done because they're economic issues. They allow for more transit and more commerce
Do
to
we
happen.
need another bond issue?
We need to finish the one that we're in right now, Hoppy.
But we're almost at the, I mean, do we need another major borrowing effort to try to fix additional roads? Or do you think we can do it with the money that comes in normally through the gas tax?
We absolutely need to prioritize our secondary and tertiary roads, but we need to use innovation and technology to repair our roads. I had a bill this year, and I was very proud to pass. It's the first one in the country that uses LiDAR and satellite imagery and AI and predictive analysis so that we can fix our roads before they crumble. And here's why it's important, Hoppy. It saves the taxpayer money. If we let our roads get into the position when they're slipping or they're in complete disrepair, that's a huge cost. We need to initiate our technology experts and apply innovative solutions.
Chris, how do you think that state highways are doing under this administration? How's highways doing, and would you propose another bond issue?
So the Department of Highways is already bonded to the gizzards, and we're not going to be able to borrow more money to build more roads. The only way we're going to be able to fund new roads is through general revenue. We're only going to be able to complete about 3/4 of the road bonds project because of the time that we pass that, changing inflation, changing interest rates, and changing costs of labor. This has to be a full court press to get done because roads are an infrastructure thing that we have to make sure we're able to get in and out of the state.
But you can't borrow any more money, you're saying?
They're in a pickle. We're in a pickle. The only way to fix this, guess what, is to grow the economy and grow the state's population and grow the tax base to have more revenue to focus on repairing
Why are you worried about the bond rate? West Virginia's bond rating is very high. Why are you worried about the bond rating?
It's coming, Hoppy. It's coming.
Why?
Because the bond rating is coming. The declining population and the aging population is going to create the perfect storm, put too much pressure and too much reserves are going to flow into the DHHR. It's going to take away from the ability of the state to run the state, and it's going to create a bond rating fiasco that's going to be a nightmare. It's coming. It's coming.
Mac, would you propose, what would you do about roads? Another bond issue? I mean, clearly, you can pave every day, all day, and still not catch up with all the road work in West Virginia. Is highways getting it done now under this administration? And what would you do if you were governor to try to do a better job on roads?
Hoppy, the politician's answer is, oh, yes, we're going to do that because everybody wants their roads fixed, okay? But you're putting this cost on our children and our children's children. And that's what's not being explained. What I want to do is work with the legislature. And for the first time in our state's history, we have single-member districts. So we have everybody know who's their legislator is. And so you have a problem with the roads, get to your legislator. And if the legislature comes to me and says we need a new bond issue and we can afford it, then yes, let's go that direction. But the good Lord didn't wave a wand over my head and say that you got the answers to all the state's problems. I'm going to bring in the experts that know the subject matter, whether it's teachers, whether it's the Department of Highways, whether it's corrections, and we're going to fix the solution by working with the experts. I think Maura hit it earlier on. Let's listen to the people. Let's listen to the people on the ground. See, that's what I learned in the military. Before you go attack someplace, you want to reconnoiter. You want to get to the people on the ground. There's a great quote. Come with me to Macedonia. It was a Roman general when he was getting all this information from all these people outside, and he said, come with me to Macedonia and fight with me. Be there on the ship with me when we land, and then we'll talk. I'll take your advice at that point. I want the advice of the people on the ground, and those are our 100 legislators and our 34 senators. That's who I want to listen to.
I tell you what, they're going to say the road to Macedonia needs repaved. That's what they're going to say in West Virginia.
There are ways to do a better job of building roads through technology, and also we ought to be paving at night. We ought to be doing a lot of the road work at night to quit interrupting people getting back and forth to work.
All right, let's talk about the opioid epidemic, okay? And Mac, I'm going to start with you. West Virginia has been ground zero for the opioid epidemic. Have you, any of you, been touched personally by this? I'm not asking for names or reveal any personal information, but just wondering if you have any firsthand experience with anybody who has been impacted by addiction, and has that influenced what can be done about this crisis in West Virginia? Mac, I'm starting with you because you say on your website that you would, as governor, wage war on the opioid addiction crisis. What does that mean? And have you had any personal experience with anybody who has addiction that has influenced your thinking about this crisis?
Absolutely. When I first came into office, one of my employees came to me and said, my daughter's addicted to drugs, and she probably won't be alive a year from now. And sure enough, she was dead within 6 months, okay? And within that same week, 2 other people in my office, one who was engaged to a person, he overdosed, and then another person, their son, overdosed. In 1 week, 3 people right inside my office had personal contact. That's when it smacked me, okay, that said, yes, we've got this opioid crisis, and it has to be dealt with. So the way to deal with this opioid crisis crisis is, one, work at the national level, getting China, putting sanctions on there, stopping it at the border, that sort of thing. But once it gets inside the state, now it's an education problem. If we can fix our education and educate our youth about not even trying that one, because today one pill, one fentanyl with fentanyl in it can kill somebody. We have to make sure everybody's educated, not even to take that first dose. Then we have to work with the professionals. Do you know what happened? Ali Rezai at WVU, he's going to be on 60 Minutes on January 7th. 2 segments. 60 Minutes is focusing on West Virginia University because we're finding a way to work inside the brain, the neurons, the things that create the craving, and we're trying to fix it right here at West Virginia. That's what I'm talking about, getting to the experts and listening to them as to how do you fix this problem.
More, any personal experience and any thoughts about how we deal with this opioid epidemic?
Sure. I think, Hoppy, I think every West Virginian has been touched by this scourge. It's tragic what's happened in West Virginia. You know, let me just say that I want to be very clear about this, that anybody under a Capito administration who is pushing fentanyl in our communities will go to prison for life. Full stop. Because we need supply off the streets, and it's cyclical, and it continues to happen.
A lot of those people are also themselves are substance abusers. They're selling because they're supporting their own habit. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm just saying
for far too long, Hoppy, we give criminals the benefit of the doubt. They know what they're doing, and they need to go away from it, and they need to go away for a long time because they're just coming back out and they're bringing people back into addiction. The second thing I would mention is we had the opportunity of a lifetime recently to bring dollars and funding in to prevent this with the opioid settlement. Patrick Morrissey's not here tonight because he can't answer the difficult questions that West Virginians are asking about that sketchy deal. He's a former pharmaceutical lobbyist that reached a sweetheart deal with the drug companies. The facts are that he went at it alone. He didn't join the national class action lawsuit because he wanted a political win for himself for the campaign that he's not here to talk about tonight. And what happened because of that? We left hundreds of millions of dollars on the table, and we shipped $100 million or millions of dollars out of state to trial attorneys. And I don't know where Patrick Morrissey is tonight in his Washington, D.C. apartment watching or wherever he is, but we asked him simply to do this. Make a pledge to the people of West Virginia that you won't use this money that needs to be distributed on need and need alone for your political gain. And we know that he's using it for bait, Hoppy. And you know how we know? Because he refused to sign it.
Well, simply put, he's a bad negotiator. I mean, if you look at the per capita settlements of all the surrounding states versus what West Virginia got, we got sold down the river.
Sold down the river, even though West Virginia is getting $960 million.
It should have been 3 times that at least. We were the heart of the opiate epidemic. I've been sober from alcohol and opiates since April 1st of 2004. You asked a direct question about who's been touched by it. I've been touched by it. Family members have been touched by it. And it's very, very hard. Like, this is something that I'm very, very passionate about. You will never find anyone else in the history of West Virginia that has been through what I have been through and will focus on making sure that we eliminate the opiate epidemic right here in our state. I don't think we
How do you do it? How do you get people healthy?
So from an attack standpoint, we focused too long on attacking the supply, and that's gotten us nowhere. When you make something illegal, you literally do nothing but make criminals rich. I think we need to attack the demand side, which is the families. We need to make sure that families are staying intact. We need to make sure that everybody has the resources that they need. We also need to get rehabilitation right, because we don't. 6 weeks in rehab is not going to fix a thing.
Okay, so when Moore says that a dealer of fentanyl is going to go to prison for life, that's not a solution?
No, that's fantastic by me. The problem with fentanyl is that it's like, that's warfare, right? It's all made in China, shipped over to Mexico, then comes across our open borders. And that's when it makes its way up into West Virginia. That's a problem, right? And it's a national security issue, and it should start right there at having an entire border wall. That's how you attack that end, because if not, the fentanyl's going to keep coming.
You know, but most of the illicit drugs that come to this country from Mexico come through ports of entry. They don't come from somebody crossing the Rio Grande. They come through ports of entry.
We're not tracking the border and knowing exactly how much is coming across there, so you can't necessarily say that.
West Virginia has a law that bans abortions in most cases. But it does allow a window of time for adult and minor victims of rape and incest to seek an abortion. Adults seeking abortions in cases of rape or incest have up to 8 weeks and must make a police report. Minors who are victims of incest or sexual assault may undergo an abortion within 14 weeks and may either make a report to law enforcement or be treated by a licensed medical professional in the hospital. Do you think, Mac, these exceptions are reasonable as the abortion law as it should be in West Virginia? Should it be tougher? Should it be more relaxed? What do you think?
Let me begin by saying I'm a Christian, and my view of abortion is that it's wrong. Life begins at conception and ends at natural death. So that's the base, the foundation. Now, I do think the Supreme Court was correct in overturning Roe versus Wade. It should have never been passed to begin with back in 1973. 63 million babies have been slaughtered at the hands of people doing abortions. So no, I don't. Abortion should be rare, if ever. I think the Supreme Court has put this in the legislature's hands, which is an appropriate place, and the West Virginia legislature has done a fine job of coming up with those exceptions that you've come up with. So I'm a lawyer. I'll support the law that the legislature
So where it is now
passed.
is fine with is
fine.
appropriate. Chris?
Yeah, I'm pro-life, and I'll say it one more time, I'm pro-life. And the really neat thing that President Trump did is that he made sure and appointed the appropriate Supreme Court judges to make sure that Roe v. Wade was relooked at again, and it allowed it to go to the states, which is where it belongs. And people in West Virginia, we're all very, very pro-life. And this is the kind of the law of the land here. It's the way that we look at it, and so we have a law now that supports the way West Virginians think. Thank goodness for that. And I think the legislature did a good job.
So that's where it is now. It's where it's
Yeah, I'm
fine.
good.
More?
Well, obviously, Hoppy, I support the bill. I wrote the bill, and I think it's the right piece of legislation. West Virginia's a pro-life state. I'm 100% pro-life. I have a voting record that shows it, and I'm pro-life before birth, and we have to be pro-life after birth, and we've really put an effort to that, and I think it's critically important.
All right. But each of you, I think this is a yes or no, would you pledge tonight to support and vote for whoever the nominee for governor is if it's not you?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
That's a yes?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Got it. Gentlemen, well, thank you. It's been
Thank you,
outstanding. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Good
Nice,
time.
nice
Thanks for having
discussion.
We appreciate it. Good discussion, and I appreciate it. And Trump is out of my head, Mac.
Good.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it yet.
We'll see next week on your talk show.
Would you commit to more debates like this?
Yes.
I love talking anytime to people.
This is the biggest interview that any one of us will ever go through in our lives, and I think it's critically important that the people of West Virginia hear from us.
The people of West Virginia, one of the three of us is going to be your governor. We need a governor who's from West Virginia.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks, guys. We appreciate it more. Mac, Chris, good to see you. Thank you for coming. Good night, folks. Thank you.